Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check it out. We got this. Binance and the SEC in the debt box case. What about the Zakanoff case? What about the SEC versus Ripple? Because the SEC files a reply against Ripple. We're going to get into that. And David Schwartz, what's going on for 2024? We got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.63 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. The market is up 3.5%. 39,900 plus as Bitcoin is struggling to get back over 40,000. It was earlier this morning. 2,200 plus for Ethereum. 95.5 billion plus Tether market cap. XRP 51 cents. Up 1.2 on the 24-hour. Off by 9.6 on the 7-day. Range of price very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. 51 cents right now, and ranging between 50 and 51 cents. That's a tight trading range. We'll keep an eye on it as the day progresses. I do want to remind everybody, Ripple's going back on the board at Link2 today. Look, this stuff doesn't last long, and the window of opportunity to get this private equity of Ripple is closing very quickly. I'll remind you, it took over a month to get Ripple back onto the board just recently, and now we're seeing another block of it come back. This is so exciting because you know this won't go on forever. And as this goes on, you know that at some point Ripple does intend to have some kind of a public exit. And knowing that Link2 has to secure these shares first from actual Ripple shareholders, this is super exciting because you're getting down to the wire where the shareholder says, no, I don't want to let it go for that price, right? You know, and then they start getting into this game of, well, do they hold it? Or are they going to sell it? And how much longer before you won't be able to get any more? And then the window will be shut. So make sure you click the link to the sponsor and get that Ripple private equity while it's available. Now, I want to let everybody know this is a great 33-minute video rundown here with James Murphy, Meta Lawman, who I'm going to be talking to in just a few moments for an interview you will probably see tomorrow. And this is a great rundown of highlights from Coinbase hearing from two lawyers. It's John Deaton and Meta Lawman James Murphy. It is an amazing clip, but I want to give you this quick clip right here when he's calling out Patrick McHenry and asking, where is the subpoena to Gary Gensler and the SEC? Take a listen.
We are tired of the letter writing campaign by the Financial Services Committee. There's been a threat to issue a subpoena. We need to follow through. So that's not an empty threat. Take the 30 seconds that it takes. Get the messages out there. We want Gary Gensler to be subpoenaed, and the documents that have been requested repeatedly, that request to be honored. And no longer do we want his voluntary participation. We want him forced to do it.
There you go.
The SEC is coming after all of crypto.
Weak regulators spread fear, and strong regulators spread opportunity. I think we've got a real problem because the SEC has been spreading fear.
Remember, Gary Gensler says that the law is crystal clear. Well, if the law is crystal clear, as he suggests, then he certainly could answer whether or not the second largest cryptocurrency in the world is a security.
Well, interestingly enough, because we know that he was asked in that congressional hearing by Patrick McHenry if it was a security, and he wouldn't speak to it or answer it. But remember, it was Fred Rispoli from Hodl Law, who actually pushed a motion through and made and forced the SEC to acknowledge that the SEC has not reached a final decision about Ethereum network or Ether. That was what happened right there, because Freddie from Hodl Law said, I'm going to push them to the point of having to answer, and he made them, and they have not delivered any clarity on that. So we have a lot more to go over. Let's go quickly here because there's so much happening all across the board. So there's the layout right there. We know we have problems. Congress has not pushed a subpoena forward, which they really should do. Then we have this, the debt box case, which we know the SEC was caught lying And now here to try to avoid sanctions in the debt box case, the SEC has applied for and has been granted the opportunity to file for a surreply. They have until January 30th, try to make up for all of that business. Now, I don't know if you all remember this, and I had forgotten about this, but when I read it, I was like, oh, that's right. There was a company, GCC Exchange in the UK, that had not made its payment to Ripple, and they were working with them. And apparently the parties have now entered into a confidential settlement agreement with no admission of liability. So it does appear that they have worked out whatever the issue was. And I had forgotten about that, but I'm glad that we've able to kind of clean that up and figure out what's going on there. And essentially, it was a $15 million lawsuit. So it was not a small matter, right? But it appears to be rectified now. So that's exciting to understand that being closed. We move forward. Now Binance is in line, and they're seeking a dismissal in the SEC lawsuit over security token classification. And what's important to understand here is one of the things I want you to know is that the current interim CEO is Norman Reed, who was also the former chief legal officer who signed the FinCEN document and that settlement when he was the chief legal officer at Ripple. So what a small world this can be sometimes, right? So, all right, so moving on quickly here. During the hearing on January 22nd, the U.S. District Court of Columbia, Binance's legal team presented arguments and challenges the SEC's treatment of cryptocurrencies and regulatory and legal framework. What it boiled down is that the judge, Amy Berman Jackson, presiding over the case, mentioned that she would carefully consider the arguments put forth by both the SEC and Binance before making a decision. The outcome of this legal battle will also have implications for regulatory landscapes surrounding crypto exchanges and the classification of tokens. Additionally, the judge also asked the SEC to define clear boundaries with securities laws. She stated, "It seems like you are trying to say that all digital assets at the end of the day have the earmark of securities. If you're not, where is the boundary of what you are saying?" There it is. This is the problem. Where Gary Gensler says there's clarity and this, that, and the other, and then, when judges bring this up, they say, well, there's the Howey test. It's like the Howey test is an ad hoc test. That does not clearly answer the question the way it's being asked by the judge here. And she's not the first judge to ask that question. So we are seeing the SEC lose in a repeated fashion. I hope that we see that happen here with the SEC versus Binance as well. But we got to get moving. We got more to go over here. Now let's get to this, because the SEC versus Ripple case, the SEC has filed its reply in further support of its motion to compel. Now, with this, we're going to read a response here. Shout out to Jim and for all the stuff he does. To summarize, Sherry says here, the SEC is not asking for a mini trial since they believe post-compliance sales and future sales cannot escape a court-issued injunction. Apparently, Ripple told the SEC they plan to restructure their ODL contracts moving forward, and the SEC won't accept that. So that's what we have there for the overview of that. Now, don't forget, while all of this is going on, we covered yesterday the Zakanoff case, Zakanoff versus Ripple, where the consumer, the retail investor, had bought a small amount of XRP and like a couple weeks later said, hey, I lost money on it, and then tried to sue him. It really felt like a weaponization of the court system is what it really felt like, even though I can't personally prove that. And that was before the actual SEC versus Ripple case. So, but knowing that the judge in the Ripple case has found XRP in and of itself to not be a security, and secondary market sales do not qualify as securities, what kind of measure does the Zakanoff versus Ripple case even have at this point? So I'd love to hear a lawyer comment on that. But back to the SEC versus Ripple and this recent reply for its further support in the motion to compel to give up this new evidence. Let's take a look at this breakdown here from Wrath of Common. So basically here, looking at number one, audit finance statements from 22-23 is what they're looking for. The SEC argues it's proper to discover these things, claiming both sides acted and spoke together as if it would happen. Also, the SEC tried to get it in 21. Ripple acknowledged post-compliant price could be relevant to show SEC damage, so maybe not so irrelevant after all. Now, I couldn't find a number 3, so maybe he skipped a number, I'm not sure, but or took it down. And though Ripple argues their finances are irrelevant to assess penalty size they can pay, the SEC says courts consider wealth for deterrence even if Ripple can't pay. A big wallet just means a bigger sting may be necessary. Number 5, Ripple says they now follow rules, but promises are cheap and the SEC wants to see the receipts and judge for themselves if they really have stopped selling XRP as securities, institutional sales on that level. They want to look at the present and future ODL contracts to confirm legality. Finally, remember those pre-lawsuit agreements Ripple made, even if they had conditions. Turns out the law considers them sales. The SEC wants to peek at Ripple's post-compliant earnings from those deals because profits from them might need to be returned or, as they say, disgorged. So what will the result be? I don't know, says Wrath of Common, not a lawyer, more of a word digester, but we can all follow along at home. Cheers, no doubt, and shout out for that breakdown. It's a really great breakdown. We'll see where this goes, but remember, discovery is not something that normally is reopened. I do understand that much. So how much the judge will allow for the SEC to look is going to be an interesting find. We will see. Then there's this, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only David Schwartz sits down to talk with Tony Edwards from Thinking Crypto. What are you looking forward to this year in 2024? And he's also asked, do you think the Ripple case will end?
What are you looking forward to this year?
Well, regulatory clarity, a resolution to the lawsuit, obviously, would be. There is some reasonable chance that Ripple's lawsuit with the SEC will be resolved in 2024. Still could be appeals, I suppose. I mean, whether that would be resolved, I don't know. Big on sort of scaling at the blockchain layer. I think right now people can't really innovate right at the blockchain layer, and technologies like sidechains and some of the zero knowledge proof stuff will enable people to innovate more sort of right at that lowest layer and enable more scalability. Just getting more people into the ecosystem, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, we have to create user experiences that are compelling to people. And I'm hoping that we can do that. On the XRP Ledger side, I'm hoping the AMM amendment will eventually activate. Decentralized identity doesn't seem all that controversial. And seeing things like carbon markets and tokenized securities, I think one of the problems, particularly, so like in the United States and in most of Europe, like, we're overserved with financial products. Like, we have access to everything. Like, I can invest in anything I want right on my phone with an app. But there's a lot of people who don't have those opportunities, and they basically, their choice is to stuff cash in a mattress or not, right. And giving them access to tokenized securities and giving them access to things like collateralized lending. Obviously, they would be so that's the other interesting thing. So, like, when you think about collateralized lending or centralized lending, you often tend to think about, like, rich people having a tax efficient way to, like, access their crypto profits. That's not super, that's not that's not the way I want to change the world. But if you think about it from the other side of the sort of low risk loan for a person who can get a return who might not have access to other financial products or services, like, that's really big, because that's the way you build wealth is by saving up a little bit over a period of time, but it has to compound. Otherwise, inflation is just going to destroy it. So giving people who haven't had an opportunity to build wealth an opportunity to build compounding wealth in a system that can't be regulated away or taxed away by fees and everything that eat into those rich, small fees today, the fees compound too. So those kinds of things are exciting. And of course, institutional adoption. We'll see what the Bitcoin ETFs lead to.
There you have it right there. The one and only David Schwartz, who, by the way, will be on stage at XRP Las Vegas 2024. You're not going to want to miss it, ladies and gentlemen. And there's so much more incredible news coming. Make sure you go to xrplasvegas.com and get your tickets before they're gone. Now, just a sentiment of where the market is for XRP right now. Crypto says here, just because I say XRP is on support doesn't mean that my stance is bullish, and it doesn't mean that it has to bounce. XRP is not bullish at the moment. We are below the weekly 21 MA moving average and EMA 50 and 200 MA. Needs to go above these levels for the bulls to regain momentum. And other technical analysts that say, even though they acknowledge the same, that doesn't mean that we're not on the right side of where we need to be to see this huge imminent breakout sometime in the near term. Not financial advice. And there I'm going to leave you with this. And I leave you with this wholeheartedly. I can't wait for XRP Las Vegas 2024 either. And you're going to be able to meet Mr. I there. We've got special things planned for him. And until utility is the price driver of this market, opening night to this party hasn't happened. So from where I'm sitting, we're some of the luckiest investors in the world. I've always been a long-term investor, and I'm here for the macro play. I am a permabull. I hope you'll join me in the Freedom Zone. Our republic is under siege, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you will join us at digperspectives.com and click the Freedom Zone and join us in there. And if you're interested in being around like-minded people and building your wealth, learning how to maintain your wealth, create and protect it, this is a great place for you to be. Because I tell you, people in here are achieving their goals every day. And we're helping one another get there. And that is truly how a mastermind works. So many resources and material, and the community is absolutely outstanding. So make sure you join us inside the DPMG or the Freedom Zone. We'll see all of you there. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch you on the next one.